Hello, wonderful people. Big declaration. Not all games must or even need to tell epic stories anymore. More importantly, some of them actively avoid having narrative peaks. Instead of building towards like big dramatic arc, they keep constant low-grade emotional tension, like no finale, no catharsis, they lived happily ever after, just one big hot mess. Rivalries, drama, family drama, betrayals, characters you don't fully understand doing things that are not really clear why they're doing it until the moment it's revealed why. If it sounds familiar, it should. Because we're seeing specific kind of games learning that for perpetual cyclic motion of gameplay, this style of storytelling, which I call soap opera structure, starts emerging more and more. So, who am I to tell you all this? My name is Ranko, and I have more than 2 decades of experience in the gaming industry. I'm also a published author of 5 books. I love storytelling, and on this channel, I share everything I've learned over the time, from writing tips to networking tips, career advice, and everything else surrounding the gaming. If you're interested in game writing, game design, narrative design, this channel is probably the most informative thing you'll find. So, let's go back to the soap opera. What do I mean by soap opera? When I say soap opera, I don't mean the melodrama in this cheap sense that we are, used to seeing in TV. I mean very specific narrative structure that relies on characters and kind of produces this perpetual drama. So, soap operas, they're not like novels. They don't work like films. And they definitely don't work like traditional RPG quests, role-playing game quests. They have no clear ending, like you can have gazillion seasons of soap opera. There's no dominant protagonist. There's like always a little group and then, someone's flavor of the week. And there is no dramatic peak, because soap opera needs to be going on and on and on, and they cannot afford like grande finale, They have to constantly have bubbling drama. They have some kind of perpetual narrative motion. Something's always wrong, someone's always bad, someone's always upset, there's always someone in trouble, relationships are shifting, from enemies to friends and lovers and back, and then betrayals, of course. And the goal is not to bring some kind of resolution and then they lived happily ever after. The goal is constant emotional friction. And now that I've revealed this pattern to you, you're gonna start seeing it everywhere, especially in some games who really make do with this amazing, circular narrative structure, which is kind of, appropriate for the games, which kind of also move in this kind of circular motion. So, Crusader Kings 3. First of all, I want to apologize to Paradox Interactive and the Crusader Kings 3 team, because when I was a younger and greener narrative designer, I was like, oh my god, what is this? This is, some kind of emergent storytelling that goes, round and round and round, and this semi-procedurally generated stories. Where is drama? Where is peak? No, guys, you saw it, way before everyone else did. So when we look at the title, so Crusader Kings 3, we kind of like, oh, what's the genre? Oh, you painting the map kind of game. It's like Excel table with the graphics, and it certainly started like that, but through a clever system of roleplay elements, focus on characters, and then amazingly implementing this kind of distributed storytelling where game at every moment considers your situation, because it's quantifiable. You're owner of a certain land, you're owner of a certain number of army, there are certain fixed roles for characters, so they had this perfect setup. And then this setup kind of overtook, so it's no longer about strategy only. I think predominantly, wars are not so fun in these games. You have to chase little guys across the map, and there's no really sense of strategy. Economy is rarely elegant. It's clunky. It's like you order something built and you wait for ages to be built, for it to be built. And this is not a failure of a game. This is became their intent, so to speak, because main system of Crusader Kings 3 is people, characters, not party members, not heroes, but like, petty barons and maidens and courtiers and, spouses and fathers of your, surroundings, because you as a ruler are surrounded by gazillion of different characters. So instead of, this, streamlined party kind of thing, you have, cousin who hates you for 30 years, a spouse who cheats, who wants, their imprisoned father to be, let go only to, lead rebellion against you, then the child who estranges from you. Nothing explodes, in a big dramatic peak, but nothing ever, stops either. Nothing ever settles. It's kind of dancing perpetually. And the game never pauses to tell you like, oh, this is the important moment. Now is the, ta-da. No, it just keeps going. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going, just like soap opera. And the best part is, you are not just watching it, you're actively perpetuating it, you are participating in it. That's the beauty of it. And then, of course, it didn't take long for another game to kind of pick up on this. And that's where we get Star Dynasties, which is kind of like taking this initial extreme to the final extreme, almost stripping down the whole strategy layer or managerial layer. Because Star Dynasties actually asks, what if we removed even the pretense of strategy? Like, let's just admit it, it's like a soap opera, dynastic soap opera in space. And Galactic Layer is there to kind of, give the context to interpersonal conflicts, as it should be. And then nominally you're trying to, run the empire, but you're not really optimized. The game is not really optimized for that. You're basically babysitting a nightmare family with spaceships. And then this game, it was criticized for the lack of this strategic layer, but I think it's amazing because it involves a very narratively natural restraint that you as a space noble have to conform to the space nobility laws. So it basically even prevents you from being too imperialistic. You can have your galaxy if you play by the social rules, and then it just tosses this totally dysfunctional family and adds in these feuds and stuff and creates this hot mess with a gazillion of characters, hating you, betraying you. I mean, in Crusader Kings, your juniors, the nobles under you, they kind of have to play by the rules. You invite them to war, they come to war. In Star Dynasties, you invite them to war, they say, hell no, we won't go. Instant drama. You expected someone to show up with gazillion starships, and suddenly they're gone. Or even worse, they're selling you out to the enemy. Amazing. And of course, none of this is new, which is the beauty of it. I mean, I don't really believe in originality. You do you cannot invent anything spectacular new, and even if you did, no one would understand it. So we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. So this soap opera structure, it's very close to emergent storytelling in a sense. It's already been done very well in Dwarf Fortress and RimWorld. Of course, Dwarf Fortress, if you didn't know, it's a very game that's perpetually in development, made by two brothers. It was quite obscure and niche until I think a year or two ago. Then it exploded on Steam. It's for the check. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but the basic thing of Dwarf Fortress is that it's not as much as a building colony manager, as much as it's like managing psychotic drunken dwarves kind of story. It doesn't produce story arcs, but it produces hell of anecdotes, and some of these anecdotes are really can be traced to epic proportions. I mean, on the internet you can find just epic stories about Dwarf Fortress runs, which are worth it. It reads like a best fantasy ever. soldier carries a grudge with someone in the colony, and then the hilarity ensues. Drunken dwarf suddenly, oops, like murders someone just because they were frustrated. The murder destabilizes some relationships. That suddenly, what seemed like a perfect normal dwarven outpost is like a slugfest. Everyone's free for all, and or I don't know, goblins arrive and then they get afraid, and then they run and they trample all the trolls, and then the trolls disperse into the surrounding area, and then you have troll infested forest. Dwarf Fortress does that and so much more, and there's no implemented structure as per se. There's no like design pacing, but it's just simply one thing led to another kind of thing, and it's really cool. And then RimWorld takes it to even another level, because it does have a bit more structured, I would say, building element, but with a really cleverly designed AI storyteller, it kind of keeps your goals more tangible, because Dwarf Fortress is more like an open game. If you don't know how to entertain yourself with it, it's not gonna be probably very fun. But RimWorld gives you like all of that, a bit of focus, and then ramps up this soap opera storytelling by not only allowing you to manage crazy needs of these crazy spacemen, but also adds their personal traits. One's greedy, wants bigger room than everyone else. One is trying to sneak another drink or to steal another bar of chocolate. One's jealous, one's hilarious traits, but layers on top with ideologies like, do you behave like society prescribed structure is, and are you going to be, or rather what kind of conflict you want to be with your predominant ideology. And then it adds relationships, and then it adds nobility and all kind of social rules, layers intermingling. And it's a game that's not structures for you to win. It's as Tyne and Sylvester shared with us, it's a storytelling engine basically. And this storytelling engine can only be moved in perpetuity by, you guessed, soap opera structure rules. So let's break down this structure. What makes soap opera storytelling a distinct structure? And why do I call it a structure at all? Because one important element is that there is no climax. There's no final moment, final boss. RimWorld kind of pretends there is, because it allows you to have this, I won't give you any spoilers, but it kind of pretends to have this big final battle, which is fine, but it's kind of designed for you to have story after each session. The game ends, or you save a game, and it's not like, okay, we'll continue tomorrow. It's like, woo, phew, this is a fun season. Let's have another next time. First, there's something I would call horizontal drama, or rather, there's no verticality in sense of peaks. There is a rising action, but it's low, and it makes waves that are lower in intensity, but they are very powerful in emotional context. And then characters are not like pawns, or they're not there to be victims of fate like in Shakespearean drama. They are engines. Each character is a cloud of issues that kind of bounces and rubs off of other characters, and their needs and their traits and their social framework that they move inside. They generate stories through friction. And then you have player, who's actually, especially in Dwarf Fortress and RimWorld, but also to big extent in Crusader Kings, the player is not an author of this drama. There's very little you can do to change the elements of this drama. In Crusader Kings, you cannot just switch who's your father, or who's your mother, or who's your family, or who are your nobility that serves you. Also in Dwarf Fortress or in RimWorld, you even have like fewer direct controls. So you're not writing a story, you're maintaining a system that produces stories, and you can just hope that you kind of strive towards this homeostatic ideal, and then everything erupts, and you have to constantly react and simply observe the spectacle as it's unfolding. And this is fundamentally different than all other structures, which are more or less linear. Even the hero's journey, although represented as a cycle, it is kind of, beginning, middle, and end kind of thing. While in Dwarf Fortress or Crusader Kings 3, there is only ending because, in this universe everything has ending, including the universe. But there's this perpetuity, there's this eternal now, and this eternal motion, which is, the juiciest part of the game. So why is it important now? Why is this important now? Because of the way we consume content, first, and second, the way we produce content. So epic storytelling is expensive, and mobile games encountered especially this kind of problem, like, okay, we want player to be, engaging in our game in like concrete chunks of time, so we cannot afford linear storytelling, not even like sequential storytelling. And to be honest, branching narratives don't scale well. And players don't want to be, replaying a game for endings. They want to replay for situations. And that's maybe something that tells us why Baldur's Gate 3 is actually hyper replayable. Because, with these character interactions, they did kind of, manage to touch on this situational drama. And of course, games, I think, are changing and evolving and finally embracing hard truth that narrative satisfaction does not need to have resolution. I mean, in movies, in books, in all the media that we receive, yeah, otherwise it would be very boring to, watch endless movies. But in games, when there's player's agency, narrative satisfaction does not come from big peak of drama, past. And soap opera structure gives games exactly what they need. Infinite replayability, co-creation of a story, kind of. Emotional texture without doctored cutscenes that some people might not like. I mean, remember Mass Effect endings, maybe? But also, this approach has a cost. Like, you will never have Grande Finale, which is not really, nothing to sneeze upon. There is no strong, thematically, definitive statement, or rather, it's perceived in a different way. And of course, everything connected to theme and message is kind of watered down, and that's fine, because these games, they're not trying to tell you a story. They're trying to help you live a story. They're trying to leave you with a story. They're trying to, provide you with a story which is like life, messy, unresolved, a little bit tiring, pure, real drama. So next time someone says, oh, nothing really, happened in my campaign, that's the point, because let's be honest, some things is always happening. It just never ended. So, if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, share, help with visibility. We appreciate your contribution in the perpetual run after the gods of algorithm. I have a whole list of topics I will be covering in my videos, and you don't want to miss that. And also, if you're interested in learning more about storytelling in games, make sure to join the Discord server. Link is in doobly-doo. Also, the server is an amazing space where narrative designers, writers share feedback to each other, support each other in projects. We have a nice job board as well, and we are working together to support each other towards, finding our place in the industry. And also, importantly, we have weekly reviews, Saturday reviews, where I personally go over your submissions, samples, demos, portfolios, give you my honest feedback. And when there's nothing to feedback on, we always have this kind of ranting nights where, you give me the topic and I can, say what I think, and it's uncensored, unscripted, and we welcome you. See you in the next one. Stay cool and be kind to yourself and, of course, one another.